This place used to be full of monks and lemurs and bison. Now there's just a bunch of weeds. I can't believe how much things have changed.
Aang conserving his culture is not a flaw, and even thinking that it might be a flaw is just a misunderstanding of what the series is actually about. The goal of the Avatar in the series is to conserve and restore his culture to a point where there's peace and harmony in the world.
Because your sole duty is to the world.
For some context, this video is a response to another video talking about Aang and his conservative mindset being a flaw. Firstly, let's talk about the role of the Avatar. The Avatar's job is to conserve and keep balance between the four nations and their respective culture. It's the Avatar's job to make sure that each culture has a place in the world. He's there to bring balance between the four nations, the spirit world, and everything in between that. So Aang conserving his culture as an air nomad isn't a flaw. It's actually his responsibility as the Avatar. He is supposed to keep the balance between the four nations and the four cultures within those nations. Let's watch this video and then we'll break it down bit by bit, skipping over things that either I agree with or I just don't see as relevant to the point ahead.
What are these big flaws I'm on about? Aang's conservatism.
My business is my business, young man, and none of yours!
What the hell does that mean? He has a bias towards the old that makes him lose sight of progress. We can't forget that this is a 112-year-old boy. He's going to be caught up in the past, the same way people tend to as they age. We see this in the Northern Air Temple when Aang rejects the settlers at the temple.
You can tell by the way they move, they're not airbending. Those people have no spirit.
I don't know, Aang. That kid seemed pretty spirited.
He gets so caught up seeing the settlers as perversions of his culture that he fails to properly connect with them. He would rather preserve his temple as it was yesterday than allow it to evolve into something that might help people today. Aang has a resistance to change in this sense, which is why I use the term conservative.
Firstly, I just want to say Aang isn't stuck in the old world. But he is from the old world. He's 12 years old. And throughout the series, Aang comes across as a very open and free character who is extremely empathetic and tries to understand the point of views of nearly everyone who he faces.
You know what the worst part about being born over 100 years ago is? I miss all the friends I used to hang out with. Before the war started, I used to always visit my friend Kuzan. The two of us, we get in and out of so much trouble together. He was one of the best friends I ever had. And he was from the Fire Nation, just like you. If we knew each other back then, do you think we could have been friends too?
Aang isn't angry at the refugees for being in the air temple, and he's not angry because they're not spirited. Aang is angry because the Mechanist is destroying his culture's artifacts. And the refugees have no respect for the place, or the culture, or the history there. And that's really the problem, is that they're just destroying this stuff without a single care that these artifacts might be important to other people, and that they might actually hold a lot of knowledge that people in the future might need. So he has a right to feel angry over people destroying his history and his culture without any respect towards it.
This is a sacred temple. You can't treat it this way.
And I think it's very human to be upset that the last few remnants of your people are being destroyed.
You burned my house to the ground! My family's dead! What do I do? I'm gonna find you, motherfucker. I'm gonna find.
Can you imagine coming home, your entire family is dead, and everything in your home has been destroyed and turned into something different? You'd be majorly upset, you'd be majorly confused. I don't think there's anything wrong with feeling upset over something like that. Yes, there's context to it. Yes, time has passed. Yes, these people have been forced out of their homes from an ongoing war. But that doesn't mean that you can't feel upset or conflicted that your things are being destroyed. And I think that Aang actually deals with it very maturely. And in the episode, the entire moral is that the refugees need to adapt to the ways of the airbenders, embracing their spirit while living at the temple to overcome the Fire Nation. And that, yes, the people who lived there for thousands of years before the refugees had actually a lot of knowledge and wisdom about the place that, if they learn about, would actually benefit them. And that's the moral of the episode. And throughout the episode, Aang acknowledges that Teo does have the spirit of the airbenders.
Even though Teo's not an airbender,
He really does have the spirit of one.
The problem is that the Mechanist, his father, doesn't. The Mechanist is still in his fight and flight mode of running away from a war and trying to be safe and keep him with safety. He isn't as free or spirited as someone like Aang or Teo. And throughout the episode, they use the power of the air and sky to overcome the Fire Nation soldiers who tried to attack the Northern Air Temple. So the point of the episode is that the land holds an energy or a spirit that you can tap into, and what makes the people isn't necessarily their genes, but the spirit and culture they have inside of them.
I'm really glad you guys all live here now. I realized it's like the hermit crab. Maybe you weren't born here, but you found this empty shell and made it your home. And now you protect each other.
This character flaw mainly manifests as a strong preference for solutions that deal in passivity and indirectness, values of his Air Nomad culture. Aang is more likely to dodge an incoming attack than he is to directly block it.
Typical Airbender tactic. Avoid and evade.
Aang struggles with earthbending because at his core, he refuses to accept the direct-oriented traits it comes with. The episode makes a point that Aang actually has the practical technique figured out in the training montage. It's a part of why Toph is so frustrated with him.
Aang will hold Air Nomad cultural elements to him because he is an Air Nomad. He was born in the Air Temple, and he holds those traits because he never had time to learn any of the other elements before being frozen in ice. At the time when he fights King Bumi, the only element Aang knows is air, so of course he's going to fight like an airbender because it's the only thing he is at that moment in time, and to the point that he struggles with earth. If Aang was an extremely conservative person, he wouldn't struggle with the element of earth, which is the conservative element. Earth is the most conservative element out of the four elements. The earth element represents traditions, stability, foundation, caution, and the earth around us. The reason why he struggles with earthbending so much is because naturally he is more of an air-traded person than an earth-traded person. He struggles with things like building a foundation, being cautious, whereas an air person, he will naturally be more attuned to things like his spirituality and his freedom and want for travel and movement and curiosity. This is who Aang is. That's why Aang struggles so hard to earthbend in the series. Funny enough, air is the most progressive element out of the four elements. I would argue the reason why Aang runs away is because he struggles with the earth trait of duty, which is also another conservative trait. And using a bit of Jungian psychology, I would say that Aang's shadow is his duty as the avatar. That's why he struggles with it so much. It's his shadow, especially because his ego is around him being a normal 12-year-old child and this Air Nomad who has a desire for freedom and playfulness.
What's going on?
Now that you're the Avatar, it's kind of an unfair advantage for whichever team you're on.
But I'm still the same. Nothing's changed. So what? I can't play?
That's the only fair way.
Oh, okay.
But his duty is that he needs to be connected to the earth. He needs to bring balance to the world. And that's his union shadow in a sense. So again, if conservatism and duty is his shadow, I wouldn't say it's his greatest flaw. I would say it's his greatest strength. The more and more the series goes on, the more and more Aang accepts his fate as the Avatar, and the stronger he becomes in both his personality and the decisions that he makes. He then starts to become more powerful, more confident, and through accepting his duty, he learns to love his fate.
For Zuko, the weakness of the episode is an inability. For Aang, it's an unwillingness, one he only breaks when pushed to his limit. Seeing a pattern? This bias towards his cultural values becomes a weak point for Aang many times throughout the show. Something that ties this analysis together is a scene in Season 3. When Katara is about to go on her badass revenge ninja mission with Zuko to avenge her mom, Aang initially tries to stop her with, "The monks used to say revenge is like a double-headed rat viper."
While you watch your enemy go down, you're being poisoned yourself.
Directly quoting his old Air Nomad philosophy.
But this is an Air Temple preschool. It's the real world.
It's making a point that Aang's appeals to tradition are failing him again. But afterwards, we see Aang reiterate his point in one of the best lines of the show.
It's easy to do nothing, but it's hard to forgive.
What's the difference? In the Air Temple metaphor, Aang's advocating for not doing revenge and inaction, a passivity, and the show ties it back to his conservative nature by making him deliver it through this Air Nomad philosophy that no one really connects with.
That's the same as doing nothing.
In this second line, Aang's advocating for forgiveness, action. What's more is that he makes his point about forgiveness directly without some simile or reference to past philosophy. This beautiful exchange is a massive sign of Aang's growth in the show and reflects how his wisdom has come far from being out of touch to grounded in his own experience.
So there's a lot of jargon in this moment, so I'll break it down as simply as I can. He's saying that Aang running away was inaction. I wouldn't even say Aang running away was inaction. It was a negative action. If Aang did nothing, he wouldn't have ran away. He did an action. The whole reason why he got frozen in the iceberg is because he actively ran to his sky bison, jumped on it, flew through a storm, got hit in the storm, and then fell into the water and then froze in the avatar state. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but that seems like a lot of actions that he took that led him to being frozen. And this is actually explained in the show by King Boomy when he mentions the 3 Jing.
There are options in fighting called Jing. It's a choice of how you direct your energy.
I know! There's positive Jing when you're attacking and negative Jing when you're retreating.
And neutral Jing, when you do nothing.
There are 3 Jings?
If it was in Aang's nature to do nothing, he would actually be a very talented earthbender, because that would be the Jing of doing nothing, which all earthbenders need to master to become a great earthbender, as explained by Boomy in this clip.
I guess I need to find someone else to teach me earthbending.
Your teacher will be someone who has mastered neutral Jing. You need to find someone who waits and listens before striking.
Aang's major flaw is that he's impulsive. He does things without thinking about the consequences, especially when he's upset. Look at the episode The Desert. When the Sandbenders take Upper, Aang explodes into a fit of rage and leaves his friends in the middle of a desert without any way of leaving, where they could have possibly died, all because he was angry and emotionally distraught. He acted impulsively in a similar way as he always does when things don't go his way. So when he warns Katara against doing revenge because it might actually hurt her more than what it will hurt her mother's killer, I think this is actually Aang showing a bit of caution.
You're feeling unbelievable pain and rage. How do you think I felt about the Sandbenders when they stole Appa? How do you think I felt about the Fire Nation when I found out what happened to my people?
This scene shows that his character's progressed past emotionally acting and being impulsive, that now he thinks about his actions, especially serious consequence actions like taking someone's life. And he shares that wisdom with Katara, making her aware that revenge isn't going to make her feel better, it's actually going to make her feel worse. And that is the lesson that Katara learns at the end of that episode. And you can argue that many of Aang's downfalls tends to be from his impulsive emotions and actions that lead him in a worse situation, rather than waiting patiently and waiting for the right time to act. I think the real problem that a lot of people have with this video is he makes out conservatism as something negative, when in reality, people need both progressivism and conservatism to become a balanced person. And there are times when being extremely progressive can actually be a negative trait too. The entire war in the Avatar world between the Fire Nation and every other nation is due to Sozin being extremely progressive to a point that it became aggressive.
Together we could do anything.
Yeah, we could.
Our nation is enjoying an unprecedented time of peace and wealth. Our people are happy, and we're so fortunate in so many ways.
Where are you going with this?
I've been thinking. We should share this prosperity with the rest of the world. In our hands is the most successful empire in history. It's time we expanded it.
No, the 4 nations are meant to be just that. 4.
Roku, you haven't even stopped to consider the possibilities.
There are no possibilities. This is the last I want to hear about this.
As you can see in this clip, Sozin is the progressive figure trying to expand his territories, where Roku takes the role of the conservative figure. He wants to preserve the world as it is and the way it's always been. And I would say that Aang's role as the Avatar in this generation is to be a conservative figure. He's meant to restore the world to a peace that he saw in his lifetime before the war even began. Unlike an Avatar like Korra, who is supposed to be a progressive figure and change things about the world, such as opening up the spirit portals so that the human world and the spirit world can then merge into one. That's a progressive Avatar, where Aang is supposed to be a conservative Avatar. Aang just needed to be more decisive. It was his lack of being decisive with his actions that led to this problem in the first place. When Aang actively acts on his beliefs in a decisive and controlled manner, rather than acting on impulse, is when Aang is at his best. You see this in the last fight with Ozai. He actively goes into a flow state where he's able then to take away Fire Lord Ozai's bending. And what I absolutely love about this scene is the entire war starts with a progressive idea and then ends with a progressive idea. Aang is told by all the past avatars to forget his culture and to just kill Fire Lord Ozai. But that isn't true to who Aang is. That's it for the video. Thank you for watching. If you don't mind, leaving a like and subscribing would really help me out. I'll see you guys very soon in my next video. So subscribe and be there